Hello everyone, this week we're going to start covering more detailed aspects of quantitative research. We're going to start with measurement. There will be 2 lecture videos on measurement. This is the first part. When we're trying to measure something, we first need to look at the definitions. There are 2 types of definition. The first is conceptual definition. Usually it's a dictionary definition using words to describe a concept. And then we want to have an operational definition. It's the procedures we use to measure a concept. You want people to be able to use your measure in the future to measure the same concept. And this process of creating an operational definition is called operationalization. You translate vague or abstract construct into something that can be measured. I will have an example here. How would you measure the conceptual definition of athletic or athleticism? From the dictionary, it means if someone is athletic, it means this person is physically active and strong, good at sports, having a sturdy build, and physical skills and capabilities are high. So how would you measure it with the operationalization? Lots of ways. You can ask this person to do sit-ups, and to measure the balance and flexibility through a lot of activities. But when we're doing social science research, we rely on survey. We will ask people to self-assess how balanced they are, how many sit-ups they can do within a minute, how flexible they feel like they are, and how fast they can run a mile. So this is the process of operationalization. Of course, we want to make sure that our operational definition and the conceptual definition fit. This is what we call a conceptual fit. On the conceptual level, if we want to measure violence, if we ask on the operational level, like the number of times those characters in the movie shown punching, hitting, and shooting behaviors, and we use that to operationalize the violence, it's a good conceptual fit. But if instead we ask people the number of times those characters in the movie showed helping others, hugging others, or being kind to each other, then that's definitely not a good operationalization for violence. That's what we call a bad conceptual fit. So how do you know if you have a good measure? How do you make sure you have a really good conceptual fit? There are many ways to test it. We're going to focus on 2 today. One is called internal validity. Are you measuring what you think you are measuring? The other is called reliability. Can you measure it consistently? And we use a bullseye metaphor here. Hitting the target means your measurement is valid. Hitting the same spot every time, that means your measurement is reliable. Because if I want to measure how athletic you are, I want to use the same measurement on you, on other people, and on you today, on you tomorrow. I want the result to be reliable. I don't want people keep changing their answer when they're looking at the same question. If that happens, that means my wording in the question may be questionable, may not be good enough, may not be clear enough, so people misunderstand my meaning. So you really want to check whether you have validity, whether you have reliability. So when we look at both eyes, if you are hitting the target all the time, consistently, then you are both valid and reliable. If you're not hitting the target and you're hitting all over the map, then it's neither valid nor reliable. And if you are hitting at the same spot consistently, but you are not hitting the target you wanted to, it's a reliable measurement, but it's not valid. And again, you are hitting on the target, but every time you hit a different spot, so it's a valid measurement overall, but it's not very reliable. Remember, the goal is to have measurement that's both valid and reliable. We have different assessment for validity. The first one is what we call face validity. The measure seems to look good on the face of it. Just by looking at it, it looks right. It should be done by expert, not tied to the study, so that expert is not biased, not trying to say something favorable to you just because he's involved. You want someone who is objective and understand the field very well. If people say, I tend to get into a lot of arguments, then maybe that's a pretty good sign for violence. And on average, how many alcoholic beverage do you consume during the weekend? That's a measurement for alcoholic behaviors. That's the first assessment for validity, called face validity. The second is called content validity. The measurement should capture the full range of meanings and dimensions of the concept, all aspects of the concept. Let's say a scale measuring depression. It should include both psychological aspect of depression and also behavior aspect of depression. Otherwise, you're only measuring half of the truth. So you really want to cover all aspects of the concept. This is what we call content validity. And we also want to have predictive validity. It means that if the measure has internal validity, it should be able to predict score on some other relevant future measures. Let's say if we want to measure IQ, that should be able to predict one's college GPA in the future if you are measuring IQ accurately. The next one is called concurrent validity. It means the measure should be able to discriminate between groups that should differ on key variable. If you have a measurement for athleticism, someone who exercises a lot should score differently and especially higher than those who do not exercise a lot. That's when we know, okay, your measurement for athleticism is valid. The next one is called construct validity. The measure is shown to be related to other concepts, but here it's not the same as predictive validity because you're not predicting something in the future. You're just trying to make sure that things usually happen together should be related here. Let's say grade should be related to effort, grades, or determination level. So if you have a really valid measurement of grade and have a really valid measurement of effort, they should relate to each other. Persons score high on grade should also score high on effort they put in when they study. And the measurement score on grade should not be related to anger or shyness because those concepts are not related to each other. A person who gets angry all the time doesn't necessarily have grade. So you want to check whether the relationships stand. And again, you're not trying to predict future events, so it's a different assessment of internal validity. I know it's a lot, but if you always think about a specific example, it will help you understand those different assessments. And there are ways to test the reliability as well. The measure should provide consistent result. So you want stability, consistency of measure at different points in time. So you can test and retest, measure something twice on the same people. First, in the last week of the semester, measure this person's grade level. It shouldn't change a lot since grade is essentially a trait that it's not reactionary to situation. If the measures show a strong relationship between the first time you measured it and the last time you measured it, it means your measurement is really reliable. The same thing as IQ. If you measure someone's IQ in January and you measure it again in March, you should see consistency. If the IQ changed a lot, let's say you measured 100 person in January, the same 100 person another time in March, you should see most people's score should be relevantly stable. If everyone's score changed a lot, that means your scale is not reliable at all. And internal consistency. If you have 10 questions asking people to assess their IQ, then the first 5 questions should get similar scores as the second set of the 5 questions. And there is a stats test we can use called Cronbach Alpha that assess whether items get the same concept. We don't cover that in this class. I just want to let you know that exists. That's something you can do with the stats software. I don't want you to pay for stats software, so I'm just going to explain the concept here. I'm not going to ask you to use Cronbach Alpha to test the reliability. The next way to test reliability is use equivalency, what we call cross-test. You will develop 2 versions of a scale. It's a different measure of the same concept, and see if the two measures correlate with each other. Let's say if you want to measure how happy that person is, then you can ask one version of the question describe on the happiness feeling. Do you feel positive? Do you feel grateful for your life? Do you feel satisfied with yourself? And different version also tackles happiness, but from different standpoint of view, and then compare those two versions. And the next one is called intercoded reliability. We use this more in content analysis. Let's say I develop a theme in my content analysis for my interview data. Every time when people mention that they feel less connected to their friends on social media, I think that's a sign for loneliness. And if I see the sign, I want to check if another person on my research group will see the same when they read the quote from my participant. They say, oh yeah, I do see loneliness in this paragraph. Then you agree with each other. That's a high intercoded reliability. That means your measurement has a good reliability in general. Do people quote the same things in the article based on the predetermined coding sheet? So that's essentially what I just talked about. So to sum up, we talked about what is a measurement, how do you develop an operational definition from conceptual definition, and how do you make sure you have both validity and reliability. You need to know what they are and how to test them, how to assess them. I know they all sound very abstract, so that's why you need to have real example to think about those concepts. I will give you activity later to help you understand, and I will see you soon for the next video on measurement 2.